All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Climate Change Literacy Project. We're an organization through Indiana University School of Education, and we are looking to understand what it means to be literate about climate change and share it with the university's community and beyond, as the title of our website says. Just some brief introductions. My name is Dan DeTherese, and I'm a sophomore in the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, majoring in Healthcare Management and Policy and minoring in Spanish.
And I'm Michelle Myers. I'm in the School of Education, majoring in Secondary English Education. And today we're just going to run you through a brief structural and content analysis of a piece of media that you might see online. This is through the National Geographic. Okay, so there are two ways that we like to look at media. The first is a structural analysis, and the second is a content analysis. So for a structural analysis, what you're looking at is the general layout and the format of the site. So first, you want to get kind of a feel for how it's laid out in general.
Yeah, so a couple of questions you're probably going to want to ask yourself as you're reading through the article are just generally through a quick skim of the reading, does it make sense? Another thing, does it look professional? And then also, another thing you may want to keep in mind is how many ads are on the page and maybe what the ads are about. And definitely how many, because if it's covered in ads, that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's all, like you should probably have some red flags in your head when that happens, but it's not always the worst. So.
And it's also a good thing to keep in mind if it's recommending other sites for you to look at, if it's recommending articles that you might also like. And like Dan said, this doesn't necessarily mean this content isn't credible, but it should be raising a red flag in your head. And what we like to do, if we have an article that is raising some red flags, is called a whois lookup. So you go to whois.domaintools.com, and all you have to do is enter the domain name or the URL and then search.
Okay, now that you put your link into Whois, you're gonna want to look for a couple things that are on the site, namely who the registrar of the website is, and we see it's ASCIO Technologies, and what the registrar is just a company or service which helps National Geographic, in this case, put their information online, basically, for others to access. Another thing you want to look at is the domain status. So we're going to scroll down here, and it says it's a registered and active website, and that's pretty important, which means that it's being frequently updated with current information. And finally, another thing you're really going to want to make sure you pay attention to is the title of the website, as you'll see right here. And we see that does match National Geographic to the article that we had found earlier. And finally, one thing that's really pretty critical here is the SEO score. And Michelle?
So the SEO score is search engine optimization. So this basically determines how likely this website is to pop up on any search engine. So we can see that National Geographic has an 86%, which is very high. And this is determined by their domain authority, which is also determined by how old the site is and their authoritative link back. So what other sites are linking to them. So this is pretty critical to think about, because this shows that this information, if we type this into a search engine, would be very likely to pop up. Okay, so this is the piece that we decided to look at today. It's for National Geographic. It's called Who's Still Fighting Climate Change? The U.S. Military. So one of the first questions you want to ask yourself when thinking about content is, who created this source? In this case, we found out that it was created by Laura Parker, and one of the great things about this site that makes it more credible is that they have a direct link, if you click on her name, that takes you straight to her bio.
Okay, and then so what you're going to want to do, I guess it's really convenient on the National Geographic website, gives a brief bio of Laura Parker. You can see she's just a staff writer for the National Geographic, and she covers climate change and marine environment news. Another thing I guess is really handy to see is that she was a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University, which only adds to her credibility. So you're just going to want to look at different things like that, maybe what they specialize in. Additionally, it shows that she has a good track record. She's worked at pretty large news outlets such as USA Today and Washington Post in the past. So these are just good things to keep in mind as you're moving through the article.
So the purpose of this article is to show how the military is coping with adverse effects of climate change. It broaches the irony of a government who continually debates climate change's existence while the military is dealing with some of climate change's effects. It ends with a quote from Admiral Jonathan White advocating for decisiveness and action in spite of the federal government's climate change debates.
Okay, so another thing you're going to want to keep in mind in terms of content analysis when you're going through the article is to make sure that the claims made by the author are supported, and then there's good citation throughout the article. So further up the page, we see right here there is a link when she gives some facts and she backs up, I guess, some citation here. If you click on the link, it'll take you over to an article.
And something that's really key when you're trying to analyze a piece of media to see if it's credible or not is looking at who they are citing. That's very important. So for this article, she provided many different sources, but this was kind of the biggest one because it backed up a lot of her claims. So this is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. The article is called "The U.S. Military on the Front Lines of Rising Seas." And just from doing a really brief skim, we can see that this is a scientific research. It kind of summarizes a lot of the article that Laura Parker wrote, and it gives some more in-depth facts about what is happening, and not just on one specific naval base, but on several. So we have a list here of the different bases and how they're being affected. And then we have key findings, and you can see that this is from a larger research. And so, it is very easy to go on the internet and claim that there's been a research done. So one of the things that is probably even more key when you're looking and just doing a brief skim to see if an article is credible is to look at who created it. And right away, from looking at the authors and contributors section, we can see just how credible this source must be. For instance, we have two climate scientists who were involved in this project. We have a climate preparedness specialist in the program. And then the lead author, Erica Spenger-Siegfried, is a senior climate analyst in the UCS Climate and Energy Program. And so given all of these very credible people who were involved in this project, we can come to the conclusion that the findings from this research are credible, and that Laura Parker, in citing them, makes herself more credible as well.
So after hitting all these analysis points, it looks like this article's really pretty credible. However, even though an article may look credible, it's really important to stay pretty skeptical about what they say. So you have to really make sure you pay attention to details.
Okay, so that's the end of our video. Thank you for watching. We wanted to highlight some of the main points when you are doing a content and structural analysis of a piece of media. So some of the main things that we went over were during a structural analysis, it's really important to look at the who is for the domain site. This can show you some really important information in terms of how old the site is, whether it's active or not. And then other important things to think about when doing a content analysis are who created the source, why did they create the source, and then even looking at the citations and if they're quoting research articles, that these articles are based in fact and that they are themselves not biased. We want to thank you again for watching, and if you click throughout the Climate Change Literacy Project website, you can find other videos that are similar to this that go through different media as well. Thanks for watching.